Rev up your engines! The 2011 Suzuki. They make phenomenal fast motorcycles. The cars weren't all that fast, and that was kind of the demise of them in the United States. But here's one that the guy uses to drive Uber around with. He bought the car from his sister, who upgraded to a RAV4, and she loves it. He paid $3,800, and he's put over 140,000 miles on this thing, and he's been making some serious money. I think he only paid $3,800 for it, and he hasn't put a lot of money into it either. Now today it's running a little bit rough, so we're going to analyze it, figure out why it's running rough. We'll give an overview of the whole vehicle first. Suzuki pulled out of the United States 10 years ago, 2013. Car models always are a year ahead, so it's like 10 years ago. The main reason, as far as I'm concerned, they failed is because it didn't fit the American market. Americans generally don't like smaller cars. And believe it or not, this is one of their larger cars. They didn't have enough horsepower, and they had automatic transmissions where in the rest of the world they were standard transmissions. So Americans didn't like them. This is one of the last ones they sold. They pulled out in 13, this is 2011. But it's different than the other one. It's a reasonable size engine. It is a 2-liter engine. Since this is a non-turbo, it puts out 166 horsepower. Still, that is not bad. It's got decent acceleration. You know, it's 206,000 miles on it. It doesn't burn any oil. It's running a little bit ragged, so we're going to check that out. But overall, the vehicle's in pretty good shape. And surprisingly enough for me, this is actually a New York State car, and it's not all rusted out. They learned how to code them by this time. After all, it is 2011. And as we look, there goes the plate. And as we look, it's not rotten. Look. Even though it's spent its whole life in New York State. Now, since it's got the bigger engine that they put in, the 2-liter, all-wheel drive, it's not phenomenal with gas mileage. He says he gets about 30 on a highway. Now, you saw the Forester video I did the other day. The bigger vehicle, it's also all-wheel drive, but it got 35 miles a gallon. It's a bigger engine, which is strong enough. If probably, as far as I'm concerned, they would have put this bigger engine in their car from the get-go, they might still be selling them in the United States because they got enough oomph. And hey, you figure $3,800, he's gone 140,000 miles. You can't really argue with that. See, it's bare bones. It's got a cloth interior. As usual, you know, the inside here is starting to go out a little bit. You can put seat covers, but it still looks good enough. And as we check the back, like I say, it's an Uber car. You can see, it's got plenty of room in the back for people to fit in and be relatively comfortable. Now, hilariously enough, he had a driver guy to New York City. The guy weighed over 500 pounds. But he could fit in the back. So he went in the front, put the seat the whole way back. But the owner said he had a really hard time getting to the gear shift knob because the guy was taking some of that space up too. And the car sank on the passenger side, and when he got out, it went back up again. It didn't damage it. You can see it's still back up. But it's running a little bit rough, so we'll get our scan tool and plug it in. So we'll plug it in onto the dash here, turn it on, and see what happens. Here we go, Suzuki, automatic scan. ABS, he doesn't care about that. He's interested in what it's running for. Okay, so we'll start with the engine powertrain. VO101, mass or airflow volume sensor performance. Well, now he had it changed, but it was one of those cheapies from O'Reilly, so let's gotta look at the data. Start it up, and we'll look at live data. We'll select everything, and here we go. Now you can see the fuel trim is fine. It's not going rich or lean, but the long-term fuel trim, it's subtracting 7%. So it's running too rich. You can see there's nothing wrong with the timing. It's relatively stable, 10, 10 and a half. Here is the MAF sensor data. It's going at 3.4, 3.5, 3.5, 3.4. We'll watch it for a little bit, 3.2. Well, that was the easiest fix I've had in quite some time. This is a 2-liter engine. Therefore, it should be going at about 2 grams per second at idle. It's way above, plus it's vacillating up and down. One time, it did go down to 2, but then it went up to 3.4. You can't buy mass airflow sensors at discount auto parts stores unless they're OEM. They are so critical to the engine running. Now we found that data, so let's look at some more data just to see if anything's odd. For giggles, we're going to look at the short-term fuel trim. 0 was 0, 1.6, 0.73. There, now it's at 0. Now it's a little bit. Let's rev it up and see what happens. It's running rich because it's subtracting fuel. Well, that was a perfect test, see? It really was subtracting 16% fuel when we revved it up because the mass airflow sensor is telling the stupid computer that all this air is coming in, a lot more than actually is, so it's adding too much fuel. Then the oxygen sensor starts seeing, whoa, too much fuel, it's too rich, so then it's subtracting fuel. So take my advice, whenever you replace a mass airflow sensor, you want original equipment. Now let's say you got a car like a BMW and that sensor's $600. Well, you were the dummy that bought the BMW. That's really your own fault. But let's say, oh man, I can't afford that. Go to a junkyard. They got a guarantee that they work. And if you got a little scan tool like this, you can put it in the parking lot and say, hey, look, it fixed. Or you can plug it in and say, no, look, it's the wrong data. That one's no good. So you're not really taking a chance, and you can save a lot of money that way. Because if you get an aftermarket BMW mass airflow sensor, I can just about guarantee it's going to work incorrectly. I have never seen one of those on a BMW that ever worked correctly if it wasn't an OEM Bosch unit. They're so particular about the information coming in. And in this case, it's just one of those O'Reilly cheapies from China, and they don't work all the time. I would not put one in, believe me. It's not worth the headache. Now, obviously, it's a simple job. Here's the air filter, and there's the mass airflow. It unplugs. Take the 2 screws and plug it in. Just make sure you put the plug end here and don't put it backwards over here. That's all you have to do, but you can see it's just got one of these barcodes. It is not OEM. It is a Chinese-made one, and it isn't working right. And in the case of this car, it doesn't need any kind of reprogram either. You can go buy one, take it out, unplug it, unscrew it, put a new one, plug it in, and then, yeah, it will recalibrate itself. Give it a day or two. The best way to calibrate them yourself, if you really want to do it, is you put it in, you start up the car. Get in the car with everything turned off except the engine. Rev it to about 2,000 RPMs for 10 minutes. Just sit there. If it's hot, put a big fan in front of the car. Then put the AC on, do the same thing. Put it at 2,000 RPM for about 10 minutes, then drive it. You'll probably find it will equilibrate itself and run fine. If not, drive it around a couple of days and it'll set itself up. These do not need any type of reset. Noise sensor hears the noise, so let's close the hood. Take it out. It might have a bad wheel bearing in the front. Now, for an engine with over 200,000 miles, hey, it still sounds pretty quiet. Now, these are little cars, so of course, when we hit the bumpy Rhode Island roads, yeah, you know, you're gonna hear it clunking, feeling it. It's not horrible. It's a small little car, but that's one of the reasons Americans didn't like them, because they're kind of bumpy little cars, and Americans like big, giant monstrosities. They really don't care that much about gas mileage. At least they didn't used to. Swerving left, right, you're swerving left, and I can hear the noise left. That means the left front wheel bearing is a little bit warm. It's nothing outrageous. I mean, the car's got 206,000 miles on it, but if he wants to do preventive maintenance, he could change the left front wheel bearing. And since it's a New York State car, basically, I'd probably change both front wheel bearings, then you wouldn't have to think about it. All right, it's getting hot, even in Rhode Island. The AC's nice and cool. The fact it's still got the cool little vent windows. Now, they don't open, but you get to see, so you can see what's going on. I like the style. A $3,800 Suzuki, 140,000 miles later, is still running okay. Mind you, the idle's off because it's got a cheap O'Reilly Chinese-made mass airflow sensor. He's going to get an original equipment one, so it'll run better, but he's driven it all that miles. The engine does not burn oil, even now, because it's not a little bitty 3-cylinder engine. It's a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, and in this case, it's non-turbocharged, so it's going to last quite some time. Now, yeah, they pulled out of the United States with cars 2013, but the rest of the world, hey, a lot of them are still driving Suzukis around. They get good gas mileage. They can last quite some time if you change the oil. He changes this every 5, and it doesn't burn any oil. As long as you take care of it, it could last quite some time. And of course, you can get them dirt cheap in the United States because they pulled out 10 years ago. Just heed one warning. If you need some major parts, you're going to be spending some time hunting around to find them in the United States. You might be doing the junkyard tour for a while. And here's some bonus questions and answers. That guy says I got an 03 Dodge Grand Caravan Sport, nearly 177,000 miles. The frame and body is rotten away. Should I scrap it all or should I keep the engine? Do whatever you want, but what are you going to do with the engine? I mean, it only fits a Dodge. What on earth do you want it for? I mean, those things, they rot away so bad. I've seen them where the front struts, they're mounted to the body, right? And where they're mounted to the body, the whole thing rots and the struts just pop right up through the hood. When those things are rusted, they're junk. Just get rid of it. Or if you know guys that want a hunting vehicle, they're going to park out in the woods and go deer hunting in once in a while, sell it to them, let them have it as a party van. Don't put money into something like that, just forget it. And what would you do with the engine? I know a guy that did that with a Volvo, and that was 40 years ago. He still got the stupid Volvo in a shed in his backyard. What the heck is he doing with that Volvo engine? People sometimes think the craziest things. I'll save that, it's a good engine. What are you going to do with the stupid thing? So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.